In this video, we're going to take a look at the finished project that we're going to end up with at the end of our Enterprise Application Development in Microservices class. So a few things that we're going to take a look at in this presentation. First of all, where is the playlist on YouTube and also the GitHub link for this project? And next, what are the technologies that we used? Then a look at the design of the application, and finally a demonstration. So the playlist is available on YouTube. There's a relatively long link here. I'll put it in the comments of this video as well, or you're probably already there if you're watching this video. The other way to do it is just go out to my YouTube channel, search for Disco Spiff or Brandan Jones, Brandanjones, and look for the playlist on Microservices. So if I navigate to youtube.com/discospiff and then go to playlists, we'll see under here Microservices and Enterprise Application Development with Java and Spring Boot. That is the playlist that goes along with this material. Now for GitHub, it's similar. We just go to github.com and then username DiscoSpiff, so github.com/DiscoSpiff. Go to repositories. And under repositories, we want to take a look at a couple. First is Spring Boot Microservices. That's the major repository that we're going to be using. And the other one is a simple queue reader, which is kind of a little side program that's going to work with our major program. Let's take a look at Spring Boot Microservices, and you see 44 commits. These commits are fairly frequent, and generally a commit is equivalent to 1 or 2 videos in the playlist. So it might take 2 videos to get through a concept, or maybe just 1, but either way the commits are very closely related to the videos. So that should help to navigate a little bit. Now, what are the technologies that we used here? First of all, we use Java. We use Java with Eclipse, so the Java programming language and Eclipse IDE. Latest version of Eclipse is fine. Spring Boot. Spring Boot lets us get a microservice application up and running very quickly. And then we use Timeleaf to make Java objects available to our view, to our HTML view. We use Bootstrap, which is a library of some JavaScript and CSS that makes our pages look really fancy with minimal effort because we're essentially borrowing from a very large user interface library. We used a little bit of jQuery to do some autocomplete. We did a lot of the presentation in HTML and CSS. And then for traditional database, we used MySQL as part of the WAMP stack, Windows, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And then we used the PHP MyAdmin web tool to manage that database. There's a little bit of JavaScript involved here and there, especially in the jQuery integration. And then we also used queues, ActiveMQ, and message-driven beans. So with that, let's take a look at the design. I'll pull up a Visio diagram that shows our application. And what we'll see in the spirit of microservices is that indeed we do have integration points across several different applications. So that should not say driver's license UI. Let's go ahead and change that live. We'll change that to plant diary UI. So we have an existing feed of data that's coming from plantplaces.com. And again, that's a little error there. We'll go ahead and say plant data Perl. So we have a feed of plant data that's coming in a JSON format from plantplaces.com. And this data is available publicly as we speak. So it's not something we need to develop. It's just a stream of genus, species, cultivar data. Now, within that, we have our application, the plant diary application. And the idea here is you could take a home or a business or anything that's plantable, and you can take photos and say, okay, I have planted this plant at this location. Because we're going against some existing plant data, you don't have to fill out the genus, the species, the cultivar every single time. You can just look up the plant using an autocomplete, and it will use a little bit of magic to match the specimen that you're photographing to this original plant record over here. That way we can say, show me all eastern redbuds, and the eastern redbud concept is stored at the central location, but each individual specimen that is planted is stored here in the service that we are going to build. So this service is going to have a user interface. It's going to have a little bit of business logic, a little bit of data access logic, and also the relational database that's going to store our plant data. Now, when we are tagging a specimen, a plant specimen, many times we will upload a photo as well. And when we upload a photo, a lot of times we need to resize it. We might need to watermark or trademark it. So we have a side process here, which is an image resizer, which takes the uploaded photo, resizes it, watermarks it, so on and so forth. So we effectively have three separate applications. One that provides scientific data about plants, one that is recording specific plant specimens in a yard or in some kind of landscape, and then one thing that's just sitting here resizing photos without knowing a whole lot about the photo. Let's zoom in a little bit on this middle process because that's where we're going to spend most of our time. We can take a look at an Argo diagram and we see that this is designed as a traditional three-tier application with our DTO, or our data transfer object, also sometimes called a model, so essentially a series of nouns. And then we have a package for the user interface, so things that are going to respond to button clicks and focus changes and things like that. And then we have our service layer, which is things like business logic. And then finally our DAO layer, which knows how to talk to the persistence end of our application. So that's a look at the design of our application. Next thing we want to do is a demonstration. So this is our Eclipse development environment. We have a couple of projects here that we're using. One is this one called Plant Places, which is essentially our plant diary. The other one is this Plant Places Post Processor, which is that side process that's connected with a queue, which grabs photos and resizes them. Both of these are Spring Boot applications, which means we have essentially a main class, and that knows how to start the whole application. We don't have to deploy to Tomcat or anything like that. It figures all that automatically for us. So I'll take our main application, and I'm simply going to say run as, and we'll say Java application. That'll take a few moments to start up. And then we'll do the same thing with the Plant Places Post Processor as well. So these two things can run simultaneously. So for this one, we'll go to our source main Java and go to our application. And I'll tell you what, we'll let the first one start up. And we see the successful start message there. Now we'll go down to our Post Processor application. And for this one, I'm going to right-click and choose Debug As, and then Java Application, just like so. While those are starting up, I'm going to open up the browser, and we see that this is the JSON feed that I talked about earlier that's plant data. Now, if you take a look, even if you're not very familiar with JSON, you can kind of get a little feel of what's going on here, because you see we have a series of records. Each one has a unique identifier, a genus, species, cultivar, and common name. So the genus, species, cultivar, and common name are going to be different from one record to the other, but that's really the idea. We want this to be a lookup of genus, species, and cultivars. Right now I'm searching on a pretty broad letter, which is E. Now if I change this to search for maple, then what we would get back is we would get back the scientific definition of several different maple trees, and even other things that are not truly maples but have the word maple in them. Like Henry Ivy-leaved maple, although that one, I think that one is an actual one. Flowering maple, Chinese lantern, that's not a true maple. So it has a different genus than the other maples do, where the genus for a maple is typically Acer. Now if I change this from maple maybe to apple, then we'll see the scientific names for any tree or any plant that has the word apple in it. And there are many different apple trees and many different apple varieties. So we'll get back several different ones, but we'll see malice, and then we'll see several others for apple serviceberry, things like that. So that's the feed of data that we're integrating with. So with that, let's go ahead and open up a new window, and let's navigate to our applications. So we'll just say localhost. And then we'll say, I'll tell you what we'll do, HTTP. Just like so, HTTP 127.0.0.1/8080/start. And this takes us to our specimen entry page. This is our specimen entry page, so we'll give it a latitude of, let's say, 2.01, so pretty near the equator. And a longitude of maybe -122.50. So description, we'll say a beautiful tree. Now for plant name, I'll start typing in maple. And notice as I'm typing in maple that it auto-completes. This is where we get a little bit of jQuery and a little bit of JavaScript, and it's pulling in from the plant places JSON data stream that I showed you earlier. So we'll go with an Acer palm, or we'll just go with a normal old red maple. And now we need to find a photo. So we'll run out to plant places. We'll run out to the live plant places site, and we'll look for red maple. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to grab a photo of my own here, and we'll just save it like so. So we'll choose Acer rubrum, and we'll find one that's, let's see, here's one from the Capitol grounds. That'll work for us. So we'll save this image, and we'll call this one, we'll call it just red maple. We'll keep it easy. So red maple, JPEG, just like so. Okay, now back to our application, and I'm going to choose file. And we should see now, where did we save that red maple? There it is right there. So red maple, and then I choose upload. Now after I choose upload, we can confirm that the specimen has saved to our database. I just go to the phpMyAdmin that I have installed with WAMP on this computer, and I go to the specimens table. And if we take a look, we'll go, looks like we have a couple of pages here, so let's go to the next page. And we see a beautiful tree, Acer rubrum red maple. Sure enough, the latitude 2.01 and -12250 that I saved earlier. Plant ID is 1872. So if we go and look at the JSON data that we saw earlier, we should be able to find, at least if maple's in, let's search for maple. And then Control F, 1872. And sure enough, you see that here's our genus ID 1872, which you can think of like a primary key, or in this case from the specimens table, that would be a foreign key back to the plants concept. And you see Acer rubrum red maple. So we've tied all of that together in our database. But there's one other thing that does happen when I choose that upload button. I choose upload, and notice that we get a save confirmation, but at the same note, our Eclipse lights up in orange. And the reason why it's lighting up in orange now is our message has gone from our, just one second, tell you what, we'll do it like so. Okay. Here we go. So our message went from our specimen, our plant diary application, over to this image resizer. The breakpoint right now is in the image resizer. So you've seen several points of integration so far. That autocomplete data comes from plantplaces.com, live data feed. The user can start typing and then just do a tab or do a select and pick that autocomplete data. And then we send a message over to this image resizer with a URL or URI of the image that the user uploaded. And the image resizer will go grab that image, resize it, and also watermark it at the same time. So let's continue with our example and let's see how it works. Okay, back to our application now, and I'm simply going to step over. So we'll do an F6 to step over, and that simply says execute this line and run to the next. So we keep running. Thumbnail full path, I'm just going to copy this because I know I'm going to need it in just a moment, and that's the destination where this resized image will be placed. Watermark path, watermark file. So if I look at watermark path, it should be similar as well. I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and grab that watermark path. We'll put that into the buffer. So Control A, Control C, just like so. And now it's going through and it's doing the heavy lifting of resizing the image and watermarking the image. So we will let that one go. I'll go ahead and press continue, and then the application essentially keeps running. Okay. Now let's navigate in and try to find the image that's been watermarked and resized. So I take what I copied earlier, we paste. Whoops, that's not the, that's close, but not exactly what I wanted. I think I ended up grabbing the wrong image URL there, but that's okay, we'll find it. So red maple, let's go ahead and double click on this one. And it may not look resized because the version that I downloaded was just about the right size anyway. In other words, it's something that I had already resized. But we can kind of take a quick look here, and we can see. We can look for a little difference in the sizing. Okay, so there's the original image. And, whoops. And the new image, yeah, they're about the same size. Maybe a little bit, maybe this one's a little bit smaller, it looks like, a little taller, a little shorter. But one difference you definitely will notice if you don't notice the size is notice that the watermark has been applied. So it was brought to a standard size, 640 by 480, and also applied that watermark. So that now, if someone tries to steal the image, they'll see that the copyright is directly on there. So all of our integration points fired here, from the autocomplete to getting some user data entry on our specimen page, and also uploading a file and being able to resize and watermark the file. So we see here how we're able to take 3 different services that do very specific things and integrate them together to make one entire system. And that's really a theme for this entire learning, is how to make these bite-sized services that do one thing and do them well, but then integrate a bunch of them together to make a complete software package. It's a lot of fun, and I look forward to being with you as we discover this journey. Thank you.